You're like an expert. You've
Oh,
adjusted your mic and everything, like Mariah Carey.
that's it. That's my new alter ego, Mariah. Right, welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's product and tech podcast. For today's episode, we're rolling a bit different and we're going all out and interviewing our CEO, Nathan Coe. So, hello, Nathan.
Hello, Pete.
Right, I'm going to jump straight in because you are a super interesting character, and I've got lots and lots of CEO related questions. So I want to start off with whether this is debunking the myth or it is a reality, but is it all glitz and glamour being a CEO? And from your perspective, what are the best bits and are there any hard bits? Because I'm assuming there is some brilliant bits, but also some really tough bits of
Yeah,
being
I
a
think
CEO.
I think there is. If you'd asked me outright, my answer as to what it's like to be a CEO, I don't think glitz and glamour would be at the top of my list. But I think it is all about how you take these things personally, to be
Yeah,
honest. So I think the thing I love about the role is that, like all of us in our work, you kind of have a bit of a blank canvas, or you like to feel like you've got a blank canvas and you're trying to build a thing, create a thing, do something that you're proud of. And I think the best thing about being the CEO is that you have got the whole canvas to play with. Not that you make decisions on your own, because you do that with your team and you build a team around you that can kind of help make sure that you're making good decisions for the organisation long term. But you do, whether it's the culture of the organisation, the strategy, the direction, the big priorities, all those things are yours to kind of put some stamp on. And it's not to put a stamp on it so people say, oh, Nathan did that. It's
yeah,
kind of when you look at the organisation, you say, look, I really wish we would do this, this and this. And I think the best thing about the CEO role is you don't just wish. You've kind of got to get very quickly from I wish to, well, why aren't we doing something
yeah,
about that? Why isn't our culture as inclusive as it could be?
yeah.
Why aren't we pushing beyond just advertising to digital retail? All those
Yeah.
areas.
And was that something you realised when you became the CEO? Was that something when previous to being the CEO, when you were like COO and CFO and working alongside predecessors, that you always had an inkling what it was going to be really like when you stepped into that role? Or was it more when you actually get in the reality of that blank canvas and what you can and can't do? Suddenly is a bit
It's
more
a bit of
tangible.
yes and no to that, actually. So I'd say that before I became CEO, the board obviously speak to you a long time before
Yeah.
it actually happens to make sure you're up for it, and so they can kind of get a read on you and they can get comfortable as to whether you will be ready and when you are ready. And so it went around my mind a lot, and you automatically start thinking about it. But it was kind of leading up to becoming CEO, it became very clear to me that actually there are some things that aren't wrong about what we're doing. It's just that I'd like to do it differently,
Yeah.
and I'd like to prove that we can, have a great, really, really push culture far. And at the same time show that we can perform better than many other companies. So there were lots of things, little things and big things, that I thought, do you know what, I'd really like to try and do it my way. And those things were all stuff that you can only change as CEO,
Yeah.
like culture, high level strategy, and all of those things. And a lot of what we took did come from like Trevor, my predecessor. I was there all around. I can't kind of pretend like I wasn't part of it, but at the same time there are a few areas that over time I really gained conviction that no, I really, really want to push hard
Yeah.
around, these two or three areas, on top of maintaining, the brilliance that has kind of always been Auto Trader.
And in that, I'm going to go back a little step, just in the
Yeah, I'll tell you
timeline.
about the bad stuff. I want to
No,
get that out on record.
we'll
But
come back to that. Is so you said like the board, like obviously check you ready. When did you? Was there a point in time that knew you were ready, or even before you knew you were ready? Was it something that you thought, I really want to I really want to be the CEO? Was there like a moment in time where it went like suddenly that became a reality in your head, or was it something you were gearing up for over like a long period?
yeah, I mean, these are all mixed answers. So, yeah, it was that moment where I thought, do you know what? I'd really like to try and do things my way.
Yeah,
And that was kind of as ready as I felt, because I thought, no, there are some things that I would genuinely want to do different. I don't think you can come into a CEO role without, 3 or 4 things that you really want to change over a very long period of time. If you've got no ideas around that and you're just trying to get the job, just trying to get the pay, maybe it will work, but I'm not sure you're going to end up being a great CEO. You've got to want to do something more than all of that. At the same time, though, once I became CEO, I became frighteningly aware that, this is quite different, and all the things that in your head you think, you've got to be clear on your strategy and what stamp you're going to leave on the organisation, need to build a right team around you. I mean, a lot of that stuff actually I'd done because I had a big runway up to getting the role. But then when you're in the position, and when you happen to take it in March 2020,
because I remember it was literally, wasn't it? Yeah, CEO, and then COVID just comes like an absolute sledgehammer.
Yeah, and smacks you in the face. So in a funny kind of a way. So I'd say, once you get in the role, it's all very, very different. Like I do think, like the psychological toll, the feeling of responsibility, everyone looking at you, just all the time, everyone looking at you, but especially when the world kind of goes crazy like it did back in March, you only really start to learn about the role by doing it, because it's just very, very subtle. And I've never read a book anywhere that has been able to do anything but performatively run through the sort of checklist, but not the real way that it feels. Interestingly though, for me, I love a crisis. That is when I'm at I'm the worst when everything's going well, because I'll just go beavering about looking for things that aren't going well. So actually having a crisis and just being able to naturally, I do find my stride in a crisis really, really quickly. So actually that took my mind off pontificating about, what's a great CEO doing? What mark do I need to leave? And why does everyone keep talking about the previous? None of that really mattered, actually. I could just kind of be like, right, house is on fire. COVID is about, our people are worried, our customers are worried, they're closing their stores. No time to think about being a great CEO. We've just got to crack on and work out what's the right thing to do. And that was probably the very best thing you could, apart from the fact that it was absolutely horrible, but for me, it meant that you could just be focused on doing
I do get what you mean about the thing is, when you're thrown in, sometimes being thrown in and having to swim very, very quickly is probably a better way than tiptoeing your way into it.
Yeah, and I'm all for humans being thoughtful, right? But we are known for getting lost in our own imaginations and heads sometimes. And when it really hits the fan, and you've got to kind of knuckle down and focus on the basics of, are your people safe? Are they well equipped? Can they carry on to it's actually just stops you kind of overthinking all that other stuff and cracking on with, just the most important things.
And I joined in 2012, and I think I met you on my second week when we had an office in Wimbledon. And I was trying to go back to, I remember meeting yourself and some of the other leadership team. At that point in time, back in 2012, had you, at that point, were you thinking about the potential of being a CEO in the future? Because I think we'd had just a change. It was before Trevor had come in. I think Zilla had been made interim CEO. Is that something you already had on your radar, or was it even before then, or was it after then that you started considering the possibility?
Yeah, it's a good question. I come from a very working class background, and I am a person that wants to, I don't know why, my parents have never been able to identify where this weird trait comes from, but I've always been someone that wants to do some firsts, break new ground, do something that's newsworthy, not to get the credit or not to get the publicity at all, because I'm not interested in that at all, but I am a creator, I think, at heart, and I like to be able to step back and say, oh, look what we did. So there was always a drive in me that was, it started out expressed as, I want to be the first person in my broadest family to go to university. I'd like to make 100,000 Australian dollars, because to me that felt like, it is a lot of money, but it almost felt like, that's what millionaires did. But I didn't really care about the money. It was more about just doing things that people didn't necessarily expect of me, and maybe a little bit of a chip on the shoulder there, and a particular teacher in primary school who I've been trying to prove wrong for the past 30 years.
Yeah, I think I've got one of those. So you're from New South Wales, aren't you? So
yes. So Blue Mountains.
Yeah. So is your family still all in Australia, or do you have a
whole families in Australia? They've since kind of moved closer to Sydney. So we lived in, I'm not sure what the maybe the Peak District or Cotswolds. Cotswolds is probably a bit too posh for where I grew up, but it's the Blue Mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, but quite rural. Pretty kind of working class. Yeah. As well.
And so I think did you say you got a brother? Remember we
brother and a sister.
Right, I didn't realise you I'm one of three. I've got a brother and a sister.
Oh, there you
so
go.
What are you? Are you the eldest, middle, or youngest?
Oh, I'm the wise one, the eldest.
Same. See, this is why we get on so well. I'm also the eldest. So
the trailblazer, mate. We're not the wisest. Well, we're the ones that kind of set the standard. They all then leap below in terms of rules.
So was it that something like you said, like from an early age, you had that desire to sort of like either prove people wrong or be first? So do you think that came from, like you said, like a primary school teacher, or like trying to prove some other people wrong? Have you got like a moment? Because I've got one where I had a maths teacher, I'm not going to name her, but in high school, who said, you'll come to nothing and you'll do nothing with maths. So I went and got my maths GCSE and I remember getting an A, and then I went and did A-level maths and got an A, and then I went and did degree maths, and I was driven by, I think, a bit of her saying, you will not do anything. And it was one of those ones where I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And like, I don't know whether it was just that, I can remember her telling me off in class and just giving me loads, and it was that one that galvanised, going, I'm going to prove you wrong. But then obviously it's not a great career trajectory for me to just be proving this one maths teacher wrong. But is there like a moment that you can go back to, whether it's childhood, teenage, whatever you go, that galvanise it, or is it just like lots of little things?
He was a science teacher.
Science teacher, right?
As it turns out. But no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't pin that as the moment. But there were people on the way. And I think the funny thing is, you say maybe it's not a good thing, but how many of us do just get kicked in the guts by people on the way, and they say sticks and stones won't break your bones, but words will never hurt you, and it's just a load of rubbish. And so no, I'd say there is a bit of that. There is a bit of those people in life that said, you're not the top of the class, you're not the best, you won't, you might not amount to, anything. But I think that was all fed a bit by particularly my grandmother, who's kind of since passed away, but she worked and managed to get a pretty senior position, actually, from being a PA in RCA Records, which is like a pretty big music brand in Australia, and even globally. And she was as unconventional as they come, to the point of being, I would say, outright disruptive. But I do think there is a strong that comes through my dad, my parents have been like that. So I think I come from a long line of people that are very willing to say, well, why does that need to be the case, and why do I need to be that? And then that was all fed by a bit of, the Matrix, Rage Against the Machine, kind of channeling all that.
We've chatted about skateboarding as well, haven't we, in the past?
Well, exactly. Yeah. So I think there is a strong element, and this is still true. I'd say if anything, it's got even stronger. That, well, why do we need to settle for that? Like, why do businesses need to be soulless, where we call people, their employee numbers and treat them like robots, not like they're human beings with families and friends and relational needs and want to be valued, and like, why do we need to do that? So I do think, if anything, I've become potentially more dangerous in that respect, because you do realise that lots of us just do this because that's what we do, and actually some people should just say, no, that seems like a crap idea, so why don't we not do that?
That's funny, especially when you mentioned like number. That was at my old organisation. I realised I'd become a number. There was like 3 or 4 Pete Farrells, and they were like, are you 68496 or are you 54321 or whatever it was? It was just a bit bizarre. And it was a bit where you can get lost in that. And I think I got lost for about 6 or 7 years in that organisation, where like things that really mattered to me and things that really got me up for challenging stuff. Like, like over time, it was just grinding me down. Then I turned up here, and it was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. So,
totally. And that's, I mean, the big reason people talk about why you turn up for work, and I really care about the purpose of Auto Trade, I care about our customers and all that we're doing, but really, actually, the experiment is, can you operate in a business in a way which is just really good for humans? Because we spend so much time in work and churches and communities and all those things that used to occupy people's time. A lot of that has gone now from people's lives. So why not try and provide, a place that feels like satisfying at the deepest of human levels. And it's not like the company can give people that, but actually the relationships, the friends that you build. Well, why can't you do all that and treat people really well and actually perform really well as well? And so far, actually, I think, we're doing not bad, but it's not seen as conventional, as sensible as it sounds. It is different. Well, as you know, when we talk to other companies, right, it's people think it is a bit weird.
Yeah. And is there like previous, because obviously you've not worked at Auto Trader for your whole life.
Good chunk of it though, as it turns out.
Was the things that when you came to Auto Trader, when it was Trading Media Group or beforehand, that you started to see the opportunities in this organisation and the way that we were moving, that it sort of aligned with your values and where you could make a difference?
I'd say, if I'm honestly, I would say the organisation has given me that as much as I've given the organisation. So I'd say when I first came over, I was a mergers and acquisitions guy, buying and selling internet companies. And what I saw at Auto Trader was a group of people that seemed a bit quirky. And actually, going back to my background, working class family, and you will know some of the characters, it felt like it was an organisation of grafters. There was no rubbish, no posh accents and, people looking down on other people. It was kind of get stuck in, make it happen, or, go and work somewhere else. So the people and the culture in that sense really appealed to me. The big dream was actually, no one had taken a media business at the time or a publishing business and turned it into an internet company, and that was really what brought me over. It felt like it was I would say at the time, feels like a really great company full of really good people that's big enough to matter but small enough to steer. And there was a thing that we could do with it in terms of inclusion and making people feel like, or getting a diverse community of people to feel as though they can be part of one thing. I'd say I've actually learnt as much around that stuff from the organisation as I've given it permission to kind of really explore some of those areas, and that's made me going back to my non-conventional side, that's really fed that, whether it's gender and the way that plays out in terms of pay and opportunity, or ethnicity, or disability, or all those areas. Actually, I think I've become a much wiser person because of the people, because of what I've learned actually, as we've all explored this together at Auto Trader. So, and
you said, so did you come from Australia straight into work at?
Yeah.
I didn't realise. I thought you were over here already.
Yeah. Another one of my genius timing moments. I came with a private equity firm that bought half of Auto Trader, put a load of debt in, and the next year we had the great financial crisis. So there's a lesson there. Don't follow Nathan. Tends to turn out okay. Touch wood.
And then just looking like, so we looked at it like at you and then internally organisation. Wherever in your career, is there any like CEOs or senior leadership teams or particular companies that, you've taken inspiration from or admire or think, actually, we could do a little bit of that or a little bit of the other? Is there anything, because obviously we talk a lot in other podcasts around, there is some great stuff out there with the UK globally where maybe we're doing things differently, but there's like inspiration pots. So is that something that you do look elsewhere, or is it a lot of inspiration from internal?
No, I think like a huge part of the CEO role, because there's so much going on internally, a huge part of it is really making sure that you connect externally. I think, if I think about like why have I got to where I've got to and what really matters to me and what do I think is important as CEO, it's learning, and it is learning from outside the organisation. So I would say I take ideas, like I'm hugely, hugely curious, which thankfully is one of our values, so I can get away with it, but to an insane level, and I always have been. So I do take bits from everywhere, and that's, as wide as go deep diving into quantum physics or understanding Buddhism or different world religions as it is looking at businesses. I tend to get a little bit bored of business books, if I'm right. If I'm honest, sorry. And that's because you do realise that when someone writes a book, they just tell you about all the good stuff, and with a good dose of sugar on top for hindsight. And it's kind of helpful, but in a sense it's hard to learn from because every situation is different. So I take bits, I'll take learnings from absolutely anywhere. And I think there are leaders that I think have done really, really outstanding things. I don't always admire their leadership characteristics, if I'm honest, but you can't take away from the fact that if you go back to that creator thing that I talked about, the desire to add something to the world, there were people like Steve. I mean, this is all very cliche, but you look at what Steve Jobs and what Apple's gone on to do, and look at what Elon Musk has done with cars. Like, there are some examples that you do think, well, little old Auto Trader might not be able to make that big a dent in the world because we're not necessarily a global business. But you know what? We can do something really, really meaningful within our space. So I think anyone that really drives discontinuous change that wouldn't have happened without them always grabs my attention. Very often, though, funnily enough, and this is the reason why I don't have any hero CEOs really, is so often I've been disappointed by them as you've read a news article about the culture at X, or that sounds totally horrendous and poisonous, or you think, well, I really, really like one aspect of what they've done, but I really don't like the way that they behave or who they hang out with. So I do find myself very, very skeptical of any heroes, and more just take what's the good you can take from people, because we all have a bit of good and bad in us, and try and nick all the good bits and assimilate them into what I do as best as I can.
And do you find like just when you're looking at inspiration and articles, are you a reader, or are you a listener, or are you a watcher? Like, what is it you tend to like rely on? I'm definitely books. Like, the thing is, like, around our house there's a load of books, usually science fiction stuff, but I find it really hard to tune into podcasts. I find it really hard to watch YouTube. I find a book where I can just do it at my own pace and stop. So I'm just interested, are you a book person, or are you like it's all on the travel, it's in your ears? How do you consume?
A little bit of everything. I'd say probably the biggest. So I'm like you, ironically. I'm not great with podcasts for some reason. There's something about like they're snippets which makes them really powerful, but then you've got to keep track of them all, and I just
this is like really bad advertisement for like this role.
No, but the thing is, though, I think you come across some podcasts that are absolutely magical, but there is just so much of the content out there, and you need to kind of I found that early days I thought, oh, this just sounds right up my street, 20 minutes rather than a 14-hour audio book. Saves time, absolutely brilliant. Been a bit like my experience of Twitter. I then added everyone that I thought, and ended up with so much stuff that I was just like, it's all a bit too hard. So I'd say books a little bit, but they're more a holiday thing for me. I never really seem to get a chance to sit down. I'd say audiobooks, because I tend to spend a bit of time traveling, like walking, planes, trains, that sort of thing. I find they're good, but a book is probably ideal in terms of me making sure that I'm taking stuff in. Sometimes you can realise that you've just got 2 or 3 chapters in, you've not been listening to a word that's been going on in the audiobook. But I'm also a bit for the snippets of like, I don't really watch much television at all, but I will, dabble around and see where I end up on YouTube. Normally watching surfing videos, which is not very helpful for the day job, but it does keep me entertained.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Like, if I do go on YouTube, it is for like a random mountain bike clip. But
there you go. Same.
Yeah. So, like, going back to like CEO, the life of a CEO. So when you look at the cycle of the year, because obviously the more I've been chatting to you more recently, like knowing that events come up, are there particular events as a PLC, FTSE 100 company that you really look forward to? during the year that you have to do, or on the opposite of the events where you go, oh, I really don't like that particular event where I have to do it?
Well, this is one of those questions that I need to be very, very careful about answering, Peter. So I'd say
I've got full name now. This is where this little P45 slip starts to get posted out.
You'll be right. Do you know what? This will sound weird, but there are a cadence of events, absolutely, and it's generally about your job as CEO is to kind of connect people up, or to connect with people more. So twice a year you're doing results, which I've just come off. That's doing 80 or 90 meetings back to back with investors, talking them through the results, talking them through the future of the company, talking them through challenges. And that is a big part of what we do, because as a publicly listed company, you do rely on the support of your shareholders to be able to do all the good things that we do. They don't, culture, strategy, deal builder, marketplace stuff, AI, all that sort of stuff. You are ultimately doing that on behalf of your shareholders. Kind of closely linked to that, you've then got your board meetings every, not quite every month, but probably every eight or so times a year, and that kind of deals with a bit of the external investor side of the world and the governance side of the world to make sure that you can create the environment for the organisation to do great things. Then you start to step in into the organisation itself, and I'd say the two big AT cons, one in person, one virtual, they're big moments for you to kind of be there, connect with people and tell them what really matters for the rest of the year. Then there's connecting with customers and other stakeholders, and sometimes government and press and media and all that. But in answer to your question, the times that I love the most, honestly, are just being around in the Manchester office, bumping into people and just having a chat about what's going on with them, or catching up with groups of people, whether it's early careers, our graduates, apprentices, maybe even like our induction program, and just hanging out with people. And you're not doing strategy, you're not making decisions, you're not doing anything that I guess people might say is important, but you're like connecting with people and finding out what's going on and being there for them. And they can see that you're approachable and you're just a normal person like everyone else, can build a little bit of trust. It's actually those little snippets that I would say I look forward to and get the most joy from by far.
Because it is a funny one, isn't it? Because I was talking to my wife about this a little bit the other day. Like, I talked about ATCon and how it's like, it's like you can get that huge kickback, but also I think last week, it was a tough week last week. I think I was in London Monday, and it was a really early start. And getting up at like 4 a.m, I'm like, what am I doing on a Monday? But actually arriving in the London office, like at 8:15, and there's people's meeting, and just it was really busy. It's just that instant, like, human connection.
Totally.
Because I don't go to London that often, and sometimes the people you see there, you haven't seen for like a couple of months. So it is suddenly like, it does give you loads of energy, so I totally get that. One thing I've been really interested in, and it's something that some of the other forums I get involved in, but how has your, not necessarily your role as the CEO, but how has the new board, because we've got a new chairman, new board members, has that changed the dynamic or how you approach things? Do you feel like things will be slightly different? Like, that's something I'm really interested in, like how that role of you and the board works. And cause obviously we've got a new chairman, Matt, and others have joined. I mean, inevitably it will evolve things, but I think we've gone for and the board, at the end of the day, the board choose themselves. If you like, the board choose the chair gets involved in choosing the board, and strictly speaking, I don't have any say of it, because that would be a bit of a conflict, and they've got to keep an eye on what I'm doing and how the organisation's doing, and making sure that we're doing a good job for shareholders. Now, the reality is you do get involved with meeting those people, and the board kind of specified that we've done, the organisation has done pretty well, so it doesn't feel like we need a wholesale change. So we're looking for more continuity than we are
a radical change, bringing an outsider in. So the nature of the people that, given that was the brief, the nature of the people that the board chose, I think is, maybe 80% continuing all the work that we've been doing with, hopefully 20% on top that's even better than what it was. And I think we'll get that with the new board members that we've got. I mean, Matt as a chair has got Ed, our previous chair, was the founder at Rightmove, brilliant operator, hugely intelligent, knows marketplace businesses like no one's business. Matt, a bit different actually, has been the CEO of Tesco's in the UK, CEO of Halfords, CEO of Pets at Home, currently the chairman of Greggs. Now, I don't know, dogs, sausage rolls, all that. It'll add a lot. No, I think he's got, a really different experience, and importantly, experience as a retailer, which is the customer base that we serve. And we've got, Next, fast fashion retailer, but strong online retailer. Geetha's joined as well, when she's kind of brings financial services. So I hope that the board complements the way that the organisation will change in the years to come, which is, a bigger role in financial services, bigger role in digital retailing, a bigger role in helping our retailers become more performance orientated. And I think, these board members hopefully, bode well for that journey in a way that, our previous board was absolutely brilliant. I love them and I'll miss them all greatly, but these things have to move on, and hopefully this board will let us move on. In terms of how I operate, I mean, I think it's probably a bit early to say. I mean, you've got to have good relationship with the board. They've got to have trust in you. You've got to be hugely transparent with them, and that they're all things that I would do with any board, for better or worse. And actually the good news is, all the new members of the board seem totally up for that, and that kind of works well for them.
Cool. Brilliant. Well, I'm just checking the clock, and I think we're near enough out of time. And I know you are a super busy person, so
I didn't get to tell you about all the hard bits.
I know, but I thought maybe that's the bit that we'll have to say for
there you go.
Yeah, where we can
very tactful, Pete.
We can reveal the woes as well as the joys.
Yeah, not just the glitz and glamour.
Yeah, I'm just also we've got so much in common. You know what I mean? So
we all do, Pete.
When's your birthday? I'm intrigued what star sign you are.
29th of September, I believe a Libra, but what?
Yeah, no, I was hoping you were an Aquarius like me, because then I'd have been like, look, we're so alike.
Soul
we're one
buddies.
of three. We're a little bit disruptive, and we're Aquarians.
There we go. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3, not bad. No, that was great. I love speaking to you, and honestly, I could spend hours picking through your brain and your experiences. So thanks again for coming on. I know we did absolute zero prep, so that's even better. So thanks again to listeners for tuning in and listening to Nathan. And remember to like and subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification button so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And that has done and dusted. Cheers for that.
Thanks, Pete.